Hey guys, Tom here again from synthhacker.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I made this KAYTRANADA inspired synth pad. Later on in the video, I'm also going to be covering the rest of the arrangement, including the drums and bass synth. But starting with the main chord sound, let's open an initialized patch in Serum. As always, if you want to follow along with the same MIDI and wavetable I'm using in this video, there's a free download link in the description below. The wavetable I used was a custom triangle wave modeled from an Oberheim synth. We're going to use an LFO to sweep through the wavetable position, emulating how an analog triangle wave might tonally shift over time. If you wish, you could of course just use a normal triangle wave and the result should still be quite similar. We're also just going to add 5 voices of detuned unison to add some width and give it a more pad-like quality. To get the shape we're after, we're going to give the sound a softer attack, a long curved decay, and a slow release. Let's quickly take a look at the global tab and specifically the chaos oscillators. These oscillators are similar to LFOs in that rather than producing sound, they can be used as a modulation source. The difference, as suggested by the name, however, is that they produce highly random modulation values. My favorite way to use this is in the modulation matrix, assigning one of them to the master tune of Serum, bringing down the modulation range to a sensible amount, creating a cool pitch drift effect. Now, as is typical with pad sounds, we're also going to give it a more subtle harmonic texture by using a 12 dB filter to roll off some of the highs. To give our pad some movement, we're also going to set up another envelope with a long decay to modulate the cutoff of the filter slightly with a little resonance. One cool trick I also used was to use the same envelope to modulate the filter mix amount. This has the nice effect of letting some airy harmonics through at the start of the sound before quickly being rolled off by the filter. Finally, I also just used a high pass EQ to roll off some of the lows, giving the pad the floaty sound we're after. As for external processing, I first used some RC20 to add some very subtle tape noise and further pitch drift. I also used Valhalla Vintage Verb to add some 80s bright hole reverb with a short decay. Before finally sidechaining the pad to the kick. Let's now listen to the rest of the arrangement without our pad synth. The first element I'll cover is the secondary diva pad layered with our Serum patch. You'll notice that as the Serum pad we made decays, the Diva pad slowly comes in, creating a really cool call and response relationship between the sounds. The patch itself makes use of a triple VCO spread across 3 octaves, with the waveforms of oscillator 2 and 3 being modulated by a very slow 10-second LFO. This modulation, combined with the slow attack of the amplitude and filter envelopes, creates an almost reverse sample type character. The synth also made use of Diva's chorus and plate reverb effects. As for external plugins, I again use some RC20, this time with heavy distortion, Tal Chorus LX for some further chorus, a high pass EQ, as well as some sidechain compression from the kick. The last synth I used for the bass was Native Instruments Monarch, still one of my favourite Moog emulations. While Monarch is limited by the range of sounds it can produce, it's still a great go-to synth for simple sounds that have an authentic sounding analog character. The patch itself is just a square wave with a very quiet triangle wave an octave above, routed through the Moog modeled filter with long decaying envelopes, giving it an almost 808-like character. To get the bass to sit better in the mix, I also just added a little parallel compression and some dynamic EQ triggered by the kick. Moving on to the drums, the first sound I laid down was the hats, so let's start there. They were sequenced using both a closed and open 808 hat sample from a battery factory kit. By default, the hats are set to choke one another, meaning that only one sample plays at any one time. This helps to create a dynamic and tight sounding rhythm. I also just added some pitch drift from Evolve Compressor, flanging from Echo Bode, sustain reduction from DS10, and resonant peak control with Soothe, as well as some sidechain compression from the kick. The kick drum itself is just a splice sample, shout out to Decap, and has a minimal processing with just a slight bit of saturation from Decapitator and some EQ. The snare loop is made up of 2 separate live snares I sampled from Superior Drummer 3, being triggered from Battery. The use of different but similar samples along with tweaks to the velocity helped to create the shuffling groove I was after. I also saturated the snares a little with Decapitator, added a bit of plate reverb, and tamed some of the resonant peaks with Soothe. To reinforce the main snare hits and add some interest to the fill, I also used El Clapo to add some roomy sounding live claps, with a little compression to normalize the amplitude of each hit. My last idea was to add a ride cymbal to the groove, and after accidentally lining them up with the snare rhythm, I actually really liked how it sounded. I also added some chorus from echo bode and some sidechain compression from the kick. On the drum bus itself, I used Soothe to tame some resonant frequencies, Soundtoy's Devil Lock for some saturation, DS10 to tighten up the groove, along with some compression to glue the drums together. Finally, to bring the drums to life a little and add a sense of depth, I also set up a reverb send using the convolution reverb Altiverb, making sure to roll off the lows on the input and sidechaining the signal with the kick. This brings us to the final result. So there we have it. I really hope you took something away from this video. If you want to grab a collection of presets created by me with a similar vibe, you can head over to synthhacker.com to check out my Solette for Serum preset pack. If you think you have some cool references for me for like further sounds or artists to cover, please do leave them in the comments below. It's always super interesting to hear what you guys are listening to. If you want to make sure you don't miss any future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. But other than that, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.